my addiction and my alcoholism always started with a drink, like a lot of us. Always started with a drink and pretty much ended with a drink. And all that other stuff in between was just a nightmare.
Welcome to the WRC Podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor Podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the WRC Podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and I am so excited for today's episode. I have my very first guest on today, and I cannot be more proud to introduce him. I'd like to introduce all of you to my father, Peter Watson, who is the very first guest here on the WRC Podcast. Let's all make sure we give him a warm welcome. He is a drug and alcohol counselor for a recovery program and works for a nonprofit organization called Brother Benno Foundation, which serves the North County, San Diego's homeless and low-income families. Peter is certified in alcohol and other drug studies from Palomar College and is now going for his certification from CCAP and will earn his CADAC 2 certification. He gives monthly talks for hospitals and institutions, H&I, and is a speaker for meetings and gives monthly talks to pretty much all over North County, San Diego. Peter has helped over hundreds of men and women get into recovery and serves as a mentor. He is highly regarded and well respected in the recovery community, and I cannot be more proud to introduce him today on the WRC Podcast. So let's all welcome Peter Watson, my very own father. Dad, thank you so much for joining me today on my podcast.
Why, thank you for having me.
So I'm so excited. Yeah, a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, but let's see how this goes. I would like for you to kind of share with everybody a little bit about your journey, a little bit about who you are, and just tell us about yourself.
Okay, here we go. I'm Peter Watson, and I am an alcoholic and an addict in recovery. I was born in Southern California, Santa Monica Hospital, and raised in Venice in the early days. My background back then was, I was born in 1957, so you can imagine that I lived through the 70s and through the 80s, and drugs, alcohol, rock and roll and all that stuff was just part of the deal, when I was growing up and stuff. Probably started drinking when I was about 14 or 15 years old. By that time, my mom had remarried. My dad had left my mom when I was born, actually, so I never knew my father growing up. I was pretty much a mama's boy, growing up. Lived with my grandparents and stuff, and they're from the old country. They're from Holland, and I was raised with a good background. My mom worked for a Prudential insurance company. My grandmother and grandfather owned a fish market. My grandfather was a commercial fisherman when they came over here and stuff. So, I had a love for the ocean at an early age and stuff. Moving on a little bit, my mom met a man. Actually, she was taking me fishing on a sport fishing boat in Redondo Beach, and she met a man and married him and stuff. And this man was my stepfather. Obviously, step parents, we don't get along with them too well and stuff, but he took me fishing a lot. So, I had a love for the ocean and a love for fishing and stuff like that. But also he was a hardcore alcoholic. And, after we'd get off the boat and stuff, he would take me to the bars with him, and there would be barroom fights and stuff like that. And I thought that was the lifestyle to live and stuff. So, we moved to Manhattan Beach. My mom and my stepdad bought a house in Manhattan Beach, and Probably at the age of, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old, started drinking a little bit, early on in high school and stuff, smoking pot, doing the things that kids do and stuff like that. And eventually it grew to harder things. Now, people think that addiction and alcoholism are a family disease and stuff. And, my mom never drank. She was a pillar of good life and stuff. And so, it wasn't a hereditary thing and stuff. I think it was just the times, the friends that I associated with, and obviously the stepdad being drunk all the time was an indicator that, I don't know, I looked up to him at the time, and I thought that was the way to live, I guess. I don't know. But, in the early 70s and stuff, cruising down the Hermosa Avenue and stuff, and drinking on the weekends pretty heavily and stuff. And that was the way I lived for a long time. I got into a lot harder drugs. I was an intravenous drug user. I ended up in prison a couple times for drug use and drug distribution, and so on. My life as an addict just blossomed. But what really turned things around is at 19 years old, I was with my mom and my stepdad in Hermosa Beach, and my mom collapsed right in the shoreline, holding on to my legs and stuff, and she passed away. And the pain that grief and loss brings, I was already into that mode of addiction and alcoholism, and it just blossomed. It just really spun into things, and that's how I dealt with it for a lot of years and stuff. They say that that alcoholism and drug addiction is definitely centered in the mind and stuff. And see, that was the only way I could numb out the pain. The only way I could numb out the pain of the loss and stuff was through drugs and alcohol. And after a while, it was the physical dependency upon them that really took me down those other roads and stuff. Yeah, that was my life. For a long time, had a daughter in 1988 who's graciously asked me to be on her podcast, I think. But anyhow, it's a pretty excruciating journey. When Katrina was about 4 or 5 years old, I went to prison for the first time after me and her mother had split up for a while. And I lost contact with her. And after a while of, being so strung out and in and out of jails and institutions, the shame and the guilt and the remorse of my actions kept me away from her for a long time. And luckily, I got to a point in my life where I've had another daughter, and she was taken away at birth because she was born pos-tox to methamphetamine. Her mom was an addict also and stuff. And it got to the point where, I just didn't know what else to do. I got sober and clean August 1st of 2010. So it's been over 11 years now. And so much has changed in those times. But, up until that point, the physical addiction and the mental obsession of addiction and alcoholism just took me to places that, no man should ever go. And that's for sure. I thank God every day for the program that I've gotten into and stuff, and that's Alcoholics Anonymous. See, my addiction and my alcoholism always started with a drink, like a lot of us. Always started with a drink and pretty much ended with a drink. And all that other stuff in between was just a nightmare. A nightmare. But, today things are different. Absolutely. At about, I guess, 5 or 6 years sober after taking the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I got enough courage up to reach out and find Katrina. I had abandoned her. I had absolutely abandoned her, not with the love in my heart, but just the guilt and remorse and stuff like that comes along with it. And I reached out. I finally found her. She was living in Dubai. And, we started corresponding a little bit, just a little bit at first and stuff. And I know that over the course of time, God brought her back to the United States and we were able to meet up and stuff. And I still remember, I was living in North County, San Diego, and I still remember being able to connect with her. And she was in Redondo Beach, and I had talked to my sponsor about how I was going to make these amends and stuff to her. And I remember driving up there and just praying that things were going to be okay and stuff. And I remember pulling up to the restaurant that we were to meet at and stuff. And I was sitting in my car and I looked over and I actually saw her sitting on the outside patio of this restaurant and stuff. And I don't know, just I had this overwhelming feeling that God had put us in this position right then and there, and that things were going to be okay. And I couldn't be more grateful for the program of recovery that I've been able to work, and for the reconnection that we've made. The amends process in recovery and stuff is a big deal, and probably one of the hardest steps to take and stuff. But, to be able to ask her how I made her feel in her childhood and stuff, and to sit there and listen was a pretty amazing thing, Obviously, we've been able to build this relationship back up and stuff, but, that set aside and stuff like that, being involved in the recovery process and in the recovery world has changed my life amazingly. I have this pretty incredible life right now, from being a drunk in the gutter and in and out of jails and institutions, hospitals, all that stuff, overdoses and all that stuff, to this life of being able to help other men and women in recovery and to share my experience, strength, and hope with them is just an amazing deal. And it's a spiritual program. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous have led me to trust in a God and stuff. And I got to tell you that my background is just nothing about religion or nothing about any kind of spirituality or anything. I remember, the first meeting I went to, and I saw the 12 steps on the wall, and it said in the third step that I had to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. And I didn't know how this thing was going to work, but the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous also talks about being beat into a sense of reasonableness. And I think I was at that point, I was at that turning point where something in my life had to change. And I was done. I knew that life was going to end up killing me or putting me back in prison or ended up in hospital or just never having a life. I didn't know how to live when I got to recovery and stuff like that. And because of the men and having strong sponsorship and going to meetings in the fellowship, I've been able to have a pretty good life. And the most grateful thing I have and the most humbling thing is to help another man or woman in this journey, to share my experience with them and to watch them grow in it too. You see, we don't get to know who gets to stay sober or get sober and stuff, but if we can just show them that there is a solution to their situation, that's the first step. Anyhow, you got more questions?
No, it's amazing. And, there's some things in that story that I didn't even know. And I'm just so grateful you shared that with me. I guess what I'd like to know is, how did you make the decision? What was the turning point for you to make this drastic change in your life? And what was the treatment and support you received to overcome this addiction?
One more time, it was in jail, 52 years old, not knowing where my life was going, but finally had a moment of clarity that something had to change, or like I said, I was going to die. My addictions and my alcoholism took me down to being homeless, not employable, and just not being the kind of person that I thought God wanted me to be, I guess, at this point. And all the destruction, as an addict and an alcoholic, we think that we're only hurting ourselves. No one else cares. I'm only hurting myself. And that's the farthest from the truth. The truth is that we're hurting everybody around us, and to know that is pretty devastating in a person's life, to finally realizing that, I'm hurting you and I'm hurting other family members and friends that actually care about us. A lot of times alcoholics and addicts and stuff, they feel that no one cares, that they're looked down upon, and it's the farthest thing from the truth. But in our heads, like I said, the disease is centered in the mind, and being selfish and self-centered. I'm only thinking about me and not thinking about your feelings or anything else. So, that's a big step in the recovery process, is getting that moment of clarity, saying things have to change. And recovery is all about change. It's all about changing, from that person drunk in the gutter to maybe just getting a little glimpse of something a little better in life and stuff, and pursuing it.
Yes.
That they say that addiction is a disease of perception. And that perception obviously is, if we're looking at ourselves in the mirror, we're seeing something that obviously is not too appealing and stuff. And the big thing in recovery is that motivation for change, and that's what I get to do today. I get to share my experience with other addicts and alcoholics and tell them that there is a solution. Like I said, I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not the only way to get clean and sober. I mean, people get sober in other places. A lot of people get sober in church. A lot of people just stop. I don't know how they do that, but it happens. There's some motivating factors. Some people might, think they're going to lose everything they have, and they stop. And my experience is in the 12-step program, and there's hundreds, literally over 100 12-step programs, but they're all centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You might change that first step, I'm powerless over narcotics, or I'm powerless over eating, or powerless over, they have Sex Addicts Anonymous, all different anonymous programs and stuff like that, but it's all centered on the 12 steps, the original 12 steps of the Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff. And it's a spiritual journey. I don't know how it works. My sponsor calls it magic, but, I get to sponsor men. I get to go to meetings. I get to speak at meetings. I actually have an H&I panel, which is hospitals and institutions, where we take a panel of recovered alcoholics and addicts into institutions, other recovery programs where they can't leave the program. Okay, they can't go to outside meetings. They can't go with a sponsor or anything like that. So we take it into them and share the message and stuff. And I don't know if any of them are listening. A lot of them are straight out of prison, or their parole officer has them there and stuff like that. But if we can reach one person, then we did a pretty good job and stuff. So
yes.
Anyhow,
that's amazing.
I love recovery. I love the life it's given me and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And I get to be with my daughter on a podcast. Is that crazy or what?
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing. Everything you are saying, I am just blown away with the work that you have done. And every time I'm in town and I'm around the community of people that you work with, just the adoration and the love and the high regard that people have for you and the things you have done to help change people's life is just, it's countless. I mean, every time I'm there, it's not just one or two people, it's a dozen or two people that come up to me and just tell me how much they appreciate the work you have done with each and every single one of them. And, tell us a little bit about how important support is when you're going through recovery. How would you place that in the process of overcoming addiction?
It's probably one of the most important things, the fellowship and the support. Alcoholics Anonymous is obviously a support group. We have a set of principles to get sober and clean by, but it's the fellowship, the camaraderie, it's one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, and people that understand, that have been there and stuff, that have been through the same thing. I get to sponsor a lot of men, and a lot of the guys I sponsor are also intravenous drug users and alcoholics. We have a common denominator there, that we've both been in the same position. Yet I've been sober for a while and clean for a while. I can I can share my recovery process with them. I can share my experience with them, and hopefully they get what I've gotten here,
Yes.
To take another man through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and to show them how I've recovered and stuff. It's just an amazing thing. And in turn, I get to stay sober too.
Yes, yes, yes. And life is so good in the last 8 years that we've reconnected. Like, life has just been so amazing.
I get to talk to you every weekend.
Yes, we do talk every Sunday. It's our ritual.
Miles away.
Yes, it's our ritual, definitely. And it's so exciting.
Incredible.
And so when people now come to you, when you do intake with, your line of work and you get new people into the recovery program, like what kind of advice do you give to families or the person that's about to join? Like what kind of energy do you bring to this?
A lot of times when we get phone calls on the phone about someone that is looking to get into a program, let me explain a little bit about Brother Benno's Foundation. Okay, we offer a 12-step support group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We have private homes that we accommodate up to, I'd say, 30 to 35 individuals, 25 men and 2 women's houses and stuff like that. They all live in private homes. And what our program consists of is it's a work for recovery program, okay? These gentlemen that come in and that we bring into our program, I want to also say it's free to the individual. There's no insurance, there's no nothing. The only thing we require is their dedication to recover from this disease, okay? That's all Brother Benno's gets from this. Wow. We don't get state funded. We don't get anything. Brother Benno's Foundation, being a nonprofit, is all ran on private donations and stuff. We have a thrift store and stuff like that. But what happens is that we feed and clothe the poor. Okay, we serve probably 200 guests every day, a hot meal in the morning with a sack lunch to go. The foundation does rental assistance, prescription assistance, clothing, hygiene. We offer showers, a whole thing. The only thing that we don't supply is housing. Okay, the program members, yes, we own 7 houses. Okay, each house accommodates 6 members of our program and stuff. So 5 of them are program houses, and then we have 2 sober livings for when they get out of the program. We have a 6-month residential program where they come down to the center at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they help maintain the center. We give out a lot of food, a lot of clothing and stuff. And what these guys do is they automatically are of service to the homeless population and stuff. And in recovery, my sponsor always says the 2 main ingredients are gratitude and humility. Mm-hmm. So right off the bat, it's humility central, because now I'm giving back to someone without expecting anything in return.
Yes.
Okay, so it's part of recovery. But that's why Brother Benno's is such an amazing program and stuff. We like to say we're probably the best in North County. Mm-hmm. We're the last 12-step support program, and we have a pretty good success rate, of up to a year or more. Anyhow, they get to come down, they get to be of service right away. They live in private homes. They have everything they need given to them to recover from this disease and stuff. We help them out with support in anything they need. If they need to go to court, we encourage family involvement and stuff. But what I'll get back to is the intake process is it's pretty cool. But a lot of times we get moms or dads calling to see if they can get their son and daughter into recovery and stuff. And, that's the hardest part. It's because, the mom and dad, they want their kids to get back in or get into recovery and stuff. But does that individual want to get into recovery? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we'll say, we loved your enthusiasm. Well, glad to help, but have them call me. I want to talk to the person that needs the recovery and stuff. And I need to see where they're at, not where mom and dad is, but where they're at. When we finally do meet with these individuals face to face and stuff, what we're looking really for is the desperation for change. To put the drugs and alcohol aside and to learn how to live life without them. And that's one of the most important things there is in the recovery process. The book talks about drugs and alcohol only being a symptom of the disease. The problem is that, we come in here and we don't know how to live. And we need to learn how to live. And there's only one thing that we need to change, and that's everything. The people that we hang out with, the places that we hang out, the things that we do, the thought process of the addiction and the alcoholism and stuff. And at Brother Benno's, and being a support group of a 12-step program, through the process of the steps, that change occurs and stuff. And one of the neatest things in my life is to watch the lights come on in someone's eyes that they think that they could probably do this too, and to see lives change. It's a big deal. But besides that, like I was saying, we have access to detoxes. We get people coming into the office and they're shaking and baking from withdrawal of alcohol and drugs and stuff. And it's really hard to talk to them while they're still detoxing and stuff. So, we have access to detoxes and stuff. And we send them out to detox and then bring them back and talk to them then, to continue the interview, to continue to see where they're at in their mindset to recover from alcoholism and stuff. And once we see that desperation and stuff, we introduce them to Alcoholics Anonymous in 12 steps.
It's amazing what Brother Benno's does, like the support that they give. I've seen it firsthand many times, and it's just the people that I've encountered and kind of knowing their own story. It's pretty incredible to see the transformation that they've had just by being a part of this process and getting the support and the counseling and the mentoring. It's life-changing, and people have really turned their lives around from what I've seen.
Absolutely. We have a really good success rate considering the amount of people that we do service, that we do help and stuff like that. Being around there for as many years as I have, I've seen hundreds of men and women come in and through the program of recovery and stuff. And I've seen a lot of lives change and stuff. And then I've seen a lot of disastrous stuff happening in people's lives too. The ones that can't get a hold of this thing and to continue to go out there and relapse and stuff. And I've seen people die, and that's a sad situation and stuff. But I mean, that's the disease of alcoholism and stuff. It's deadly. They say it's one of the most deadly diseases there is and stuff. It's progressive. It's terminal. It's it's something that there's a solution to it.
Absolutely.
You know, there's an answer, but you have to do the work. You have to seek the answer.
Absolutely.
And
so
at Brother Benno's, we offer the 12-step program, but all of us that work at Brother Benno's are in recovery, from the center manager down to the cooks to the people that work in the warehouse and stuff. We're all recovering addicts and alcoholics and stuff. And that's a big thing in the recovery field, because, in a lot of treatment programs, the highfalutin, insurance programs and stuff, yeah, the counselors all went to school and stuff, but they've never lived the addiction or the alcoholism and stuff. And they don't have the experience. And a lot of people come into recovery and stuff, and they think, if you haven't done what I've done, then how do you know how to solve it?
Absolutely.
How do you know the solution and stuff? And that's the one thing about Brother Benno's. That's pretty amazing, is that, that we're all in recovery and that we all have lived that life on the other side of it and stuff. And we found a solution.
Speaking of school, Dad, I learned a fun, interesting fact about you. Do you mind sharing with our listeners this fun little fact that I'm referring to?
Fun little fact. Okay. So at 54 years old, I decided that I was going to become the drug and alcohol counselor, and I decided that I would dip my feet back into going to college and stuff, which was a big thing for me, because their addiction being a fear-based thing, I was full of fear and stuff, and excuse me. So at 54 years old, I went to a community college and took a couple classes, a couple different semesters and stuff, and thought that, this isn't going to be very easy for me at that age and stuff. And, I really started enjoying going back to school and stuff. Graduated high school when I was 17, going back to school at 54, 37 years later. I'm sitting in a classroom with a bunch of 18-year-old kids and stuff, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I took a couple classes at Maricosta College, a psych class and a sociology class, and then transferred to Palomar College and took their AODS course, which is alcohol and other drug studies and stuff. And I liked it so much, I got straight A's.
Yes, amazing. Amazing.
And graduated the college, the course and stuff, and got a certificate of completion. And from there, I've been working in the field so long. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
You can edit that out.
You're
right?
important. I know you're very popular, so
it was okay. My sponsor.
It's okay.
But anyhow, from there, I've been working in the field for a long time now, and I'm now going for my certification, being a KDAC 2 counselor, which requires a minimum of 6,000 hours in the field.
Wow.
And stuff. And I have triple that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just, in the next couple months, I'll be taking a state test and be certified by the state of California in drug and alcohol counseling.
That's amazing. And going to be helping more and more people, I'm sure, that need to be going through recovery and need that support. It's funny because I'm a college counselor. I'm a counselor myself, but I counsel people in a different way. And it's so fascinating to me to hear how, you can be a counselor in pretty much anything, like you said, like alcohol and drugs addiction, or there's different types of therapy out there. There's different types of, like, there's fitness counseling, there's well-being counseling, there's marriage counseling, there's so many different types. But when you talk with somebody who does your line of work, it just puts a different perspective on how to help people and how to connect with people. And it definitely sounds like it makes a difference when you can say you've gone through the process yourself. How can people get involved or get to know Brother Benno a bit better, the Brother Benno Foundation? We'll obviously leave the details in the show notes, but how can they get in touch with this program?
Well, Brother Benno's has a website. It's brotherbennofoundation.org. And then, to get involved with the recovery program, or to possibly get a loved one or someone involved in recovery, you can email me personally at peterwatson148@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or help in any way I can.
Amazing.
And, that would be about it.
Awesome. Dad, I am so thankful that you came on to today's podcast and being a part of this journey with me. And I am so confident that this episode is going to help inspire other people in so many different ways, from you just sharing your story and you doing the line of work that you do. How can it not? So thank you so much again for taking your day off to be on my podcast. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode today and listening in. I'm going to leave all the details in the show notes, and make it your mission to be a blessing in somebody else's life today. And we'll catch you all on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.